John,
Hey, Cole.
another sand dune, but again, you need to despeckle that thing.
That was the sun was strong and it was making all those highlights in the sand.
Actually, that is a really, really, really good one. I'll add that to number three of images that I love
Oh,
of
I can
yours.
actually use this one.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
that's
your image, interesting. I've never seen you use this. Why I should know her name. Isn't that terrible?
Lenny.
Lenny. And I knew it right when you put it up, but boy, for those who have not seen Cole's lecture, this is a poignant and very powerful story. And you know what? We have something else in mind to talk about today, but Cole, we really should talk about that story
Hmm.
because and it might even work. You know what? It might actually work today. So let's start, and then I'm going to see if I can't pivot you into that
But
story.
how can we show the images? People won't be able to see the images.
No, the story will be good enough, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. But
Okay.
and if we need to, we can expand on it later. But we'll play that by ear. But
Okay.
let's start.
Talk about Lenny.
Yeah, we will talk about Lenny. I think at some point.
Okay.
I think it's really important. But today, though, let me just ask you this question: would you rather be a photographer who has a vision with kind of limited technical skills, or a photographer who has great technical skills but struggles with their vision? And that we're asking that to you, the audience, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as an audience, I mean, and think about your own path to photography here, would you rather have a great command of your technical skills but not have vision? Or would you rather have a clear vision and maybe even struggle with your technical skills a little bit? So,
It's interesting that we've met a few. I probably have met some. You've met some. We've met some together who have been artists first, who came into photography later. And that always surprises me. I've got a painter friend who was a painter and then they became a photographer. And I always thought, wow, when you can paint, why would you photograph?
yes.
Um, and I've always found that they were more creative and that those limited technical skills never really held them back because you can learn the skills. So I've always been impressed with those people.
Oh, incredibly so. I've shared a story with you before, but the one that comes to my mind is Flint Sparks again, who's my co-leader out at the retreat. Excuse me. Now, he's not a painter or an artist in that regard, like you just mentioned, but he's a Zen priest. He's a PhD psychologist who had his own practice in psychology. He meditates. He's an amazing, amazing human being who's done all this inner work through his whole life. I mean, being Buddhist and being a Zen priest, a Buddhist priest, that's hard work. You're doing some pretty deep self-analysis. And the story, just to make it really quickly, is when I met him, he was a student coming to a workshop, not the retreat that he and I then created, but that came out of this experience. And he came to me and said, I've had a camera for 6 months because DeWitt Jones, the great National Geographic photographer, said, you need a camera. So he obediently went out and got a camera, but he had no idea. So he put it on, as DeWitt would say, P for perfect, not for program mode. But, DeWitt says, Flint, just put it on P for perfect and just point the camera and make photographs. That's how you should start. And the first night when Flint showed images after being scared to death to show images amongst other people there, his images were extraordinary.
Mm.
And it just flummoxed me. Boy, there's a good word. Flummox. Nah, it's not very many syllables, but
Not
it's
a
a good
very big
word.
word.
It's a good word though. It flummoxed me because I couldn't figure out how the heck does a guy who's had a camera for 6 months take these incredible images? Well, I think it's just an exclamation point on your story previously, and that is because it's not the gear, it's not the technical that's going to make your photograph sing. That vision driven, and essentially, whether he knew it or not, he was bringing all of him to the act of photography and just pointing his camera and capturing these moments that were amazing. And so I would like to pivot now to Lenny just for a second and see if I can't get you there to what I was hoping to do. So as I remember, the portrait of Lenny is called, and Lenny had breast cancer. Is the woman behind him, that I love that photograph of her, and she begged you, I mean, 3 times to make her portraits, and you said no over and over and over again. And I would submit to you, well, you tell the rest of the story. Why did you say you didn't want to do it?
Well, first of all, Lenny was a customer. She had bought a print of the Angel Gabriel. I think she saw it in the Sun magazine, and she was enamored with it. And then about a year later, she calls me up and said, I've got breast cancer. I've had a mastectomy, and I want you to photograph me. And I, like you said, tried 3 different times to get out of it. I wanted to get out of it because it was outside my comfort zone.
Huh?
I don't like to deal with sad stuff, so I wanted to avoid it. I feel too much. And I didn't really have skills. I didn't have any portrait skills, no lighting skills, nothing. But
Yeah.
she wouldn't let go. And she not only insisted that this work be created, but that it be shared with others, which I
Yeah.
thought was very open of her because, well, if you saw the other photograph, I photographed her mastectomy.
Yeah.
And so we're taking these pictures, and all along the way, I'm, thinking and I'm wanting to ask Lenny a question,
Of course.
but I'm afraid to because I thought maybe I don't sometimes know these rules of etiquette, like,
Yeah.
asking a woman her age. Well, this question was quite personal, and I didn't know if I was supposed to ask it, and I didn't know truthfully if it would ruin the shoot.
Yeah.
So as we're getting near the end, this is the next to the last image, as I recall. And I finally were standing at her kitchen counter. I'm starting to get ready to put the gear away. I've got this camera in hand still, though. And I said, Lenny, what is your prognosis? And she starts to cry. And that's the next image. And she says, I'll be dead by Christmas. This was in August of 2008. And good news is she didn't die,
Yeah.
but she wanted the work shared. And what I have found fascinating, I would say 98% of the comments and people reaching out to me over this series are husbands
Oh.
whose wives went through a mastectomy, not from women. And I don't know what that means, but it means something.
Yeah.
And we're touched by it.
Yeah, and it's an incredibly powerful body of work, Cole, and one that I find incredibly compelling. And the reason I wanted to just add that into this discussion is even you, the great Cole Thompson, and I mean that sincerely, you were a little bit held back because of the technical. That was part
Technical
of the equation.
and emotional,
Yeah,
and
yep,
it's
yeah.
uncomfortable.
Oh,
It was
horribly. I
uncomfortable.
can't, I would have said no and kept to no because I am so outside of my comfort. But what Lenny understood, and this is to me the whole point of this, and why I wanted you to share at least that much. We can do more of this at another time. Lenny knew what your vision was. She knew more than you did at that moment in time. And she was not going to let go. She wanted Cole Thompson to capture and knew that you could do that for her. And that's how I see that.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if subconsciously that experience cemented for you how important vision was versus technical. To me,
Oh,
it's an
yeah.
incredible illustration of that.
There's so many of my projects that I didn't have a clue technically how to do it going in. The Moy sitting for portrait,
Yeah.
the Ghost of Auschwitz-Birkenau, so many. And if I would have said to myself, I don't have the skills, I'll do it later, I've learned there is no later when it comes to inspiration. When you feel it, you
Yeah.
got to do it right then.
Yeah, you would have missed the moment. Well,
So let's just bring this back to the
sure.
people. Would you rather have a vision with limited technical skills, or would you rather have great technical skills with limited vision?
Yeah,
I'd like to hear from you.
we would. And thanks for following along, all 1,081 of you. 2,000, here we come.